So a couple additional people joining, and we'll welcome them along the way, but let's go ahead and start. And if you would mute yourself for now, that would be lovely. And we will go ahead and start with the flag pledge. Kathy, pull that up. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
For all. All right, and our four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And the fifth one, will it be fun? We're gonna try to make it fun. All right. I don't know, this whole mute thing though, when we're doing that feels a little lonely. We might have to change that up. All right, so we're gonna now move on. If Al would go ahead and unmute and give us our invocation.
Yes, this is one that came through social media. I take no credit for it, but it's posted by a fellow by the name of John Jones. And it says, recently overheard was a father and a daughter in their last moments together at the airport. They had announced the departure. Standing near the security gate, they hugged, and the father said, I love you and wish you enough. The daughter replied, Dad, our life together has been more than enough. Your love is all I ever needed. I wish you enough too, Dad. They kissed, and the daughter left, and the father walked over to the window where I was seated. Standing there, I could see he wanted and needed to cry. I tried not to intrude on his privacy, but he welcomed me by asking, did you ever say goodbye to someone knowing it would be forever? Yes, I have, I replied. Forgive me for asking, but why is this forever a goodbye? I am old and she lives far away. I have challenges ahead, and the reality is that the next trip will be for my funeral, he said. When you were saying goodbye, I heard you say, I wish you enough. May I ask you what that means? He began to smile. That wish is something that's been handed down from other generations. My parents used to say it to everyone. He paused for a moment and looked up as if trying to remember it in detail. Then he smiled even more when he said, I wish you enough. We were waiting for each other, we were wanting each other person to have a life filled with just enough good things to sustain them. Then turning toward me, he shared the following as if we're reciting it from memory. I wish you enough, son, to keep your attitude right no matter how gray the day may appear. I wish you enough rain to appreciate the sun even more. I wish you enough happiness to keep your spirit alive and everlasting. I wish you enough pain that even the smallest of joys may appear bigger. I wish you enough gain to satisfy your wanting. I wish you enough loss to appreciate all that you possess. I wish you enough hellos. I wish you enough hellos to get you through the final goodbyes. He then began to cry and walked away. They say it takes a minute to find a special person, an hour to appreciate them, a day to love them, but an entire life to forget them. Only if you wish, send this to the people you will never forget. If you don't send it, anyone may mean that you are in such a hurry that you have forgotten your friends. Take time to live. To all my friends and family, I wish you enough. This has had quite an impact on me. I've shared it with several people, and different ones I've shared it with have brought tears to their eyes. So to me, it's been a very meaningful little piece that came on social media where we see so much junk information and so forth, but it's blessed me. So just pray with me. Our dear Father, we love you and thank you for this day. Thank you for the beauty of it. And we thank you for this type of fellowship that we can have. We pray that you would be with our speaker today, and all that is said and done, may it all honor your name. This we pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Al. So moving, for sure. We have a few announcements today, several, and so I will kind of go down the list, and I'm going to start with David. If you would, David Craig, give us your announcement.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we have some volunteer opportunities. Obviously, the every meal at Brim Hall is still going on. We have openings all the way through February and March. A lot of our usuals are down in Arizona or on vacation, so we can use some help. If you're interested, go on Sign Up Genius, look for an open time and sign up, or let me know. And the other thing we do, the Rotary District has asked us to do something with the Afghan resettlement. And so we're working with Alight, and we are going to do a apartment setup for an Afghan family in the Twin Cities here. They'll include a furniture assembly, some cleaning, stocking the kitchen, setting up bedrooms, staging home furnishings and stuff. I have 4 people signed up. We could use a couple more. The more hands, the less work for everybody. And that would be on February 19th from 9:30 to 12:30. So it's only a few hours on a Saturday morning. You need to know by the end of this week, because there is a little bit of onboarding paperwork we need to do. There's a light requires a background check. It's pretty quick. And then we have to have a proof of vaccination. So if anybody's interested in helping us out on the 19th, let me know, or go to Sign Up Genius. There's an email sent out by Kathy on 1st of February that you can find a link to the Sign Up Genius. Thanks.
Thanks for all your leadership on those efforts, Dave. And it sounds like a great opportunity for our club to continue to be real thoroughly engaged. Lauren, I wanted to circle back around to you. I know in Kathy's email today, she shared photos and a link to the story about Uganda, but wanted to just circle back to see if you wanted to share anything more. You're on mute.
I think she included most of the things. If you want to do something today, we can certainly do that now. Otherwise, it's all in the newsletter and you can read it all there.
Why don't you give us a highlight? That would be lovely.
Okay, can I get a share screen?
Yep, you are shared.
Okay. I thought I had this open before. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. This is what's happening in Uganda right now, compliments of our club to a large degree. They're digging a trench that's going about 9.2 kilometers to carry water from a mountain stream into a village where they have to carry water about 2 kilometers in order to have drinking water. Other than that, the only thing they have is the water that's in the rice paddies. So here are a couple of these things. You can see how deep it is, and then they all get together. They've been working about 10 hours a day digging these trenches. And this is lunchtime. You can see them all gathering for that. Here's where they are. It's working primarily alongside roads. Here is the tubing that they're burying. It's 3-inch pipe, so it's going to carry a pretty good supply of water to this community when they get done. And just here's another example, but all the work is done by hand. It's done with pickaxes and hoes and shovels. Here's the primary tool, and the ground has been so hard recently that in some cases they've had to actually dump a bunch of water in the pit or in the trough in order to soften up the ground enough so they can even dig it out with those hose that they've got. People unrolling the hose, and here's the tubing or the hose in the deal. Here's more people just having lunch. It's been very hot and dry there. Temperatures up in the 100-degree range, so they take breaks and make sure that everybody is fed and watered. This is the only mechanical machine they have, and it's one for joining pipes together. So they'll roll out probably 150 feet of pipe, and then they have to join it to another one. And this is the machine, and they've got an electric generator there, and I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's evidently a big deal for them. Maybe somebody there, one of you mechanical people, understands what it's all about, but it works. This is the piping that's going underneath where the railroad tracks are. And so it's a big heavy duty thing, and they run the water pipe through this and then bury this and the water pipe together under the railroad tracks so the railroad won't crush it. And just working along the road, you can see where they've got all the tubing out there. Here's that protective tubing going underneath the railroad tracks. It's a big deal going under tracks and figuring out how to make sure that's going to work. And those are the basic photos I have right now. And I look forward to having this project completed probably in the next week or two. And then we can complete it and have some end results for you.
Wow, thank you so much. You've really spearheaded this, Lauren, along the way, and just so grateful for all of your leadership and that the club gets to be behind this special project. All right. In addition to what is shared from Lauren's project online, you can also find links to past speakers, as well as there was a list today for the book club the book club is reading, the Rotary Book Club, which is Lincoln on Leadership. And if you're interested in getting more involved in that book club, you can call Don Salverda. All right, now I'm going to ask Jan to, we're going to do some happy dollars. And Jan, why don't you tell us about happy dollars and a few other things that are going on with the Rotary Foundation?
Well, happy dollars in our club is used to fund polio plus donations. So all the money that comes from this goes directly to the Rotary Foundation for polio plus. My great a good idea this year was that we could do $20 happy dollars for it, which if you're able to, that's a great thing. Instead of just happy $1, do a happy $20, and we're going to get our polio plus taken care of. And we're, as you know, that far away from finishing with polio in the world. Also, though, this is the Share the Love Month in our district, and the Rotary Foundation had a happy hour this week. By the way, thanks Tom User, who's our member and online here with us tonight, for chairing the district foundation. And next week we will talk about the Share the Love campaign, which involves some discounts, and I shouldn't say discounts, some rewards if you can make a donation within this month or next month. And I don't want to cut in too much, but just I know I'm going to whet your. You really want to know what this is about, but get ready to get your checkbook out because you're going to want to give to the Rotary Foundation after we have shared the love with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I do have a happy dollars to start off with. This weekend we were able to go, my family and I, down to the snow sculptures for the winter carnival, and that was a really biting wind, but my kids thought it was awesome, and the maze was really fun. And I think though that the part that really kept their attention was the snow bank next to all the sculptures. That actually was the snow that they used to build the sculptures, but you get kids in a snow bank, and that was really fun for them, but it was great for the family. Anyone else have a happy dollar? Lauren.
I have one. First of all, I see we're up to 2 screens now, which is something we haven't had to worry about for a while. And secondly, I see Don Salverda is on here, and I know he's been in the hospital for angioplasty on 2 different heart valves or heart arteries. And so I'm just happy to see Don back.
Here, here. Absolutely.
Sleeping.
All right. Lynn, yes.
Well, I have to get my dog here real quick.
Oh,
$20 for Onyx's second birthday today.
How fun. Excellent. Anyone else have some happy dollars? It looks like, oh, that's Kathy clapping. Okay. Anyone else?
I'll give a $5 happy dollar. We're leaving for Arizona on Valentine's Day for a month and a half, so we'll probably be Zooming you from Arizona.
Well, you'll have lovely warm weather there. We'll miss you, but we'll be glad to see you virtually.
Oh, thank you.
All right. With that, I will go ahead and ask Jan if he would introduce our speaker today.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm lucky enough to live in Roseville and in this area. And we've had some work done. We live on a pond. We have some water. This is not the pond that you see behind me. I wish it was. But and the Metropolitan Ramsey, Washington Metro Watershed District comes out and helps you with your different projects you do, and sometimes just to assess. And actually, Simba Blood came to our pond and gave us a reading of how good it was and told us about what invasives were in there, which weren't too bad. Anyway, but Paige is the watershed project manager. She's had about 15 years of experience managing various projects for the watershed district. She's currently managing Stewardship Grant program to provide technical financial assistance for property owners seeking to install water quality improvement practices. We were the beneficiaries of one of those about 15 years ago in our area. She also administers state and federal grants, coordinates project installation, oftentimes working with multiple stakeholders on one project. So you juggle stuff. Is that what you're saying, Paige? And,
yes.
And Paige manages the watershed maintenance program to ensure all projects installed with grant funding are maintained, so which is something good because you don't want to have it to tail off after it's done. And with this, I introduce you to Paige Aldberg. Thank you, Paige.
All right. Thank you, Jan, and thanks for having me here. I'm going to share my screen quick and then make you all bigger so I can sort of see faces. I like when people have their cameras on, so it seems like people are actually listening. It's great. Nice to see such a big group. All right, is that shared now? Okay, good. All right, so I will get started. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Jan. And if anyone has any questions as we go on, it might be easier for me if you save those to the end, just because it's hard with so many people to see if someone has a question, but if there's something pressing, definitely jump in and let me know. So I'm going to give a quick watershed district background. I know some of you might be familiar with watershed districts, but they're a little bit confusing entity. So I'll go over a background, talk about what we do at the Ramsey, Washington Metro Watershed District, and talk about some practices that we have in the Roseville, Little Canada area, and talk about just other things, maybe you as homeowners or business owners can do to help with water quality. And then we'll have time for questions, hopefully at the end. So what is a watershed district? A watershed district is a local unit of government. We compare it to kind of like a school district. We don't follow city or county boundaries, and I'll show you a map of our boundary here coming up, but we're designed, our watershed district started in 1975, and I think it was the second or third watershed district in the metro area, but designed to help manage stormwater or rainwater that falls on the ground, making sure that our water that falls on the ground is clean when it goes into our lakes and streams and wetlands. We are a government entity, so we take tax dollars from anyone who lives in our district. It shows up as, I think it's other property tax or other taxing authority. We take a small portion of that every year to put towards some of these projects that I'll talk about today. We are managed by a 5-member board of managers. So we, as our name says, Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed, we cover part of Ramsey County and a little bit of Washington County. So we have 4 board members from Ramsey County and then 1 from Washington County. And yeah, that's kind of our overview. We, excuse me, have several programs that maybe some of you have dealt with. Sounds like some people have met with. And Simba Blood, who is one of our natural resource technicians, but we do water quality monitoring. So we have a team of people who go out and they kind of work in conjunction with Ramsey County, their environmental services department, but doing in-lake monitoring. They also do stream monitoring, and then also different monitoring projects of various best management practices or BMPs that we install. So we have, you know, if we're doing something a little more innovative or something that's for research purposes, they may set up some water quality monitoring. Not every pond or stream gets monitored. We try to do the big ones, and some of them are required by the state. So we want to make sure that we get those readings in every year. We have a permitting program, which if anyone has ever been part of a construction project, you'll have to go through our permitting program. So that triggers for new or reconstruction that's over an acre, and that applies to private development or public. So other governments, you know, MnDOT roadway projects or county roadway projects, they have to comply with our permitting. And that's where they would be required to put in some type of stormwater management BMPs. So something, you know, you'll see a lot of infiltration basins or rain gardens. I'll show some more pictures of those, or underground systems, something to treat that stormwater that's running off. And it's especially needed in areas, you know, we live in a very urban area. And when there was a lot of, when that was constructed, there wasn't, you know, stormwater management wasn't on everyone's mind. So it's great that we can catch those new redevelopment projects that are coming in now. We have our natural resources program, which is pretty unique to watershed districts in the metro. We have a great team of people who go out and do restoration projects. So they've just completed a big project on, we call it Wetland A. It's a wetland near Snail Lake in Shoreview. It was a 4-year restoration project. So getting more native plants in around the wetlands. They do a lot with, we have a great partnership with some of the Ramsey County golf courses. So working at Keller Golf Course and around Lake Phalen, also working with their park, the St. Paul Parks and Recs department, to get these great shoreline restorations installed. And I have some pictures of those too. We do capital improvement projects every year, which are just kind of a hodgepodge of, you know, things that we maintain and are required to take care of. We coordinate those large construction projects and also work with our cities that are part of our watershed to do some larger projects as well. And then we do watershed education. We have an education specialist and communication specialist who help get involved with schools and church groups and Boy Scout, Girl Scout groups, basically anyone who wants to learn about water and native plants. And then the program I worked with is our Stewardship Grant program. So if anyone has questions about the other programs at the end, definitely I can try to answer those, but my area of expertise is the Stewardship Grant program. So I'll talk about that today, as well as touch on a few other things as we go along. So here, it's a little bit hard to read, just a map of our boundaries. So it's, you can see that it is a little bit crazy. We cover all or parts of 12 cities. So we're part of Shoreview and Rsvl, and I'll zoom in on that area a little bit more since I think that's where most of you are from or have businesses. But then we cover all of Little Canada, pretty much all of Maplewood, the east side of St. Paul, a little bit of most of North St. Paul, and then a little bit of Oakdale and Woodbury. And again, that's based on how the water flows, and all around us are other watershed districts too. So if you happen to live outside of the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, you are still part of a watershed, and they do a lot of similar programs, including the grant programs that I'm going to talk about today. So you may be in Rice Creek Watershed District or Capital Region Watershed. And on our website, if you're curious about which watershed you live in, you can confirm. We have a link on our website that says, are you in our watershed? And if you're not, it'll tell you which one you're in, which is pretty convenient. Or you can always reach out to me as well. And then this map, you can see those, well, maybe see those red arrows on there. That just shows where the water flows. And then there are some blue arrows that don't stand out quite as well, that show a little bit more local water flow as well. So everything going, from Bennett Lake up into Lake Owasso, and then those wetlands over there. And then, kind of that on the east side in Little Canada, the Jarvis chain, starting with Coleman, Jarvis, Keller, down to Lake Phelan, are the big water bodies that we're focused on. This map, these little spotted areas of color, are all of the BMPs, or best management practices, that are in this area. So the red triangles are, are stewardship grant projects. So projects where people call me and say, hey, we want to do something that's good for water quality. What can we do? And Jan touched on that. Well, we'll come out to your property, take a look. We actually started now doing, just with all the COVID issues, doing a more desktop analysis, which has helped a lot. We get, you can kind of screen people out that way. Some people are interested, maybe not necessarily what we do, but more general landscaping. So we can assess that over the phone and then come out and look at your property and tell you which of these practices that I'm going to talk about today will work for you on your property. So that's the red. The yellow are BMPs that were installed as part of our permit program. So projects where they're required to put in something. So they're reconstructing or have new construction that's over an acre, or maybe they're building around a wetland and need to install something. So those are designed and reviewed by engineers. And then we have our own engineering firm that helps review those as well. So making sure that new construction and reconstruction doesn't negatively impact our local waterways. And then these are a little bit harder to see, but there are some green squares on here. Those are what we call our targeted retrofit projects. So we have some larger projects where we usually use Clean Water Fund dollars as well as our own grant dollars to put in big projects at churches and schools are kind of the big ones right now. We have some Grace Church in Rsvl, Prince of Peace. We're trying to work with the schools, as most of you probably know, but the Rsvl School District is undergoing a lot of their own construction right now, but we have plans to work with them in the future once they're done with those projects to get some more water quality practices on their high school campus. So that's exciting. It's great to see all those colors filling up the Rsvl area. Now I'm going to go into a little bit about some of the BMPs that we use, the best management practices. Rain gardens, you've hopefully seen some of these around. Hopefully they look as nice as this. Sometimes they get forgotten about and a little overgrown, which is why we have our good maintenance program now, where if we provide grant dollars, for a project, we also have a secondary grant that people can apply for to help with maintenance, so that we're encouraging people to hire someone to do maintenance. Some people do just fine on their own, but a lot of these, they have the misconception that, oh, they're no maintenance, or I'm going to plant this and I don't need to maintain it, but they're a garden, weeds grow. They're going to collect any garbage and whatnot that falls off the street. It's going to go in the rain garden, which is great because we're keeping it out of our lakes and streams. So it's easier to catch from here. But yeah, so these are rain gardens. I think you can see my arrow hopefully, but there's what we call a curb cut right off of the road. So these were installed. This actually the road was reconstructed. So it's a little bit easier to put these in at that time, but we can do it on roads that aren't being reconstructed, where we cut a chunk out of the curb, and then that water, as it flows down, this probably goes this way, it flows down the curb line, can go into that rain garden. The water that falls onto the roadways is pretty dirty. We have a lot of just metals and chemicals that fall off of our vehicles and other things on the road that normally go untreated straight into the storm sewer and then into local lakes or wetlands. So by having these rain gardens, the rain gardens filter that out through the soil material that's in there, and then also the plant roots can uptake some of those chemicals and clean those out, and just filter that water so it's cleaner when it gets into hopefully into the groundwater, or else sometimes if it can't get to the groundwater, we add a drain tile. So then that water will be cleaner, but then flow into the storm sewer. So here we have another little piece of artwork. These are rain gardens actually down in Maplewood. where we did a little bit of artwork on the sidewalk as well, just to draw attention to the garden so people know kind of, these are something special out here. And then hopefully people see these and know that they need to be maintained and take a little pride in those as well. Native landscaping is a big one we're seeing more of. And actually I would say last year was one of our bigger years with this. Rain gardens are great. You can see in this one here that it's collecting water. So they're designed to hold water for 48 hours and then filter down. That's, quick enough time where it's hopefully ready for the next rain event, and also doesn't provide mosquito breeding habitat. We don't need any more of that. So that's why they are designed to drain fairly quickly. Native landscaping is great because it allows us to put in native pollinator friendly plants, which are kind of the big thing right now. And also, these plants are native. They can tolerate drought conditions. They can tolerate pretty wet conditions as well. So they don't need to be watered. No, we don't need to use potable water to irrigate these. We had a lot of calls about this last year. A lot of cities had watering restrictions, pretty strict watering restrictions in place. So people wanted to know what they could do to convert their regular turf grass lawns into something more native. And it doesn't always have to be these tall prairie flowers. I think these are beautiful. This is actually our office building on the top left, and then Lake Phelan in St. Paul on the right. So Lake Shore Restoration there. But there are other native just grasses you can do that are low, we call them low mow. So you can mow them just a couple times a year. So you're using less chemicals and energy that way. Easier on, I don't like to mow, so I think it's a great opportunity for people to cut back on mowing as well. But another thing you can look at, or you might be hearing more of the bee lawns now are out too, where you can plant maybe some clover or other plants that attract bees and other pollinators, but aren't these tall native plants that we see in prairies. Porous pavement, you maybe have seen some of these. The city of Shoreview uses a lot of this, what's called pave drain on the right. They put in a big stretch of it between, or on Owasso Boulevard between Lake Owasso and Wabasso. And some other streets in Shoreview have that as well. And then porous asphalt is what's on the left here. We don't use as much of the porous asphalt, but it's great. It's a good product. It works well in Minnesota, both of them. So what is underneath, and I probably should have had a picture of that, but underneath is rock and sand and just, probably 8 to 12 foot deep, kind of depending on what you're dealing with, underground area where the water can flow or not float, sink in, infiltrate into the ground through the pores on the porous pavement. So that looks like kind of like a Rice Krispie bar. If you can see a little bit of the road in the corner of this picture, that's just normal asphalt. And then everything here, instead of flowing off into the storm sewer, it soaks into the ground, gets, again, some more of that filtration. And same with this paved drain on the right. So there's cracks here where the water can soak into the ground. They need to be maintained. You have to sweep them with the street sweeper to get some of the fine materials out of there so that the pores don't clog. But relatively easy maintenance. They're great in the winter, especially when you don't drive on them. It's a little bit harder when you get kind of that compacted snow and ice on there. They don't melt as much, but when the sun hits these, typically the snow will melt right down into the pores. You don't need to salt them. They're pretty, and they also have a little bit more traction too, so they're a little bit safer in the winter. So another good option. We're seeing a lot more of that. And if you can see in this picture, this is actually our office as well in Little Canada. That's what we have, a green roof up there. We don't see a lot of those nowadays. They're kind of expensive and don't give you much. I don't want to say they're very beneficial, but not given the cost. It's a little bit high, but this is a great opportunity. There are some projects I know in St. Paul. There's a fire station, a couple of churches that have green roofs. The Target Center has a green roof, which is pretty cool. So just some other ways people are trying to get native plants in, especially in their urban environments. Tree trenches are another kind of newer best management practice we're seeing. These kind were actually designed in Stockholm, Sweden, and we had some engineers. We work with Bar Engineering Company, and we did a big project at Maplewood Mall, starting in, I think it started 2009. It was a 4 or 5 year phase project, but so we had our engineers nicely volunteered to go over to Stockholm, Sweden, and talk with their engineers about these trenches. They have similar weather conditions to us, but they don't have a lot of soil. It's kind of a rock bed, and then soil is washed into that rock bed underneath there. And then the trees are able to grow. They won't get as tall as they would in like a forest type setting, but they grow fairly large. We've had good success. We have had to replace some, but nothing, more or no more so than we would in just a regular parking lot landscape project like this. But then these trenches collect water. You can see or sort of see these grates here. Collect the stormwater, and then underneath is again that filtering material that goes down, and these are all connected, so it filters, and then they're connected with a drain tile that connects to the existing storm sewer. So if you haven't been out to Maplewood Mall, this is a great project to look at. We actually installed tree trenches at a couple of Target stores as well, one in North St. Paul and one in St. Paul off Suburban Avenue and 94. The Rsvl Target and Shoreview Target, unfortunately, are outside of our watershed district, but we were excited to work with Target on those. There's one of the Woodbury Targets in our watershed that we're hoping to work with as well to get some more best management practices there. And then Target they have a specific stormwater team who's really excited about these opportunities, and we wanted to help them, through these projects, see what they could do on other campuses as well, both in new construction and redevelopment. So it was great to work with them on that and have a good partner. Obviously, a lot of people go to Target and see the parking lot, so we're working with them on signage. These Maplewood Mall trees all have little signs on there that say one of 375 trees that treats stormwater, I believe. And then there's some other education around the mall as well, just to help let people know what's going on. Kind of the forgotten about best management practices are these underground treatment systems. These are everywhere, and most of the time you won't even know. This top one here is a Walgreens, is it Walgreens or CVS? It's on the corner of Rice Street and County C, I think technically Little Canada. That was installed several years ago, but so they obviously this is a permitted project, so they're required to put in some type of stormwater treatment. A rain garden or something above ground is preferred by us. It's easier to maintain, people see it, you get a little bit more of that aesthetic benefit as well as the native plants, but it's not always possible. Our conditions are tight. Parking is obviously very important, and making sure that there's access and whatnot to these buildings that are being constructed is kind of their top priority. So a lot of these go underground. So here, this is a storm tech system. So the water, both of these, this one's not, I think you can see in this yellow here where it's just a half arch or an arch. So the bottom is open. So the water fills up in this trench and then filters out through this rock media before it goes into, I think this goes into Lake Bennett. So helping clean that stormwater. And then again, this bottom picture is a senior living facility, a fairly new one. I don't remember which one, but constructed in Rsvl over the last year or so. So again, this is a full pipe. These pipes are big enough you could probably walk through. They're probably 5 to 6 feet tall, and perforated on the bottom so that the water can flow, go into the ground, soak in a little bit before it connects to the regular storm sewer system. But again, they're paved over. There's access points for all of these so that when cleanouts and inspections need to happen, that's easily accessible. But otherwise, they're kind of forgotten about. And it's I don't know that it's good or bad, but a lot of times people say, well, why didn't that store, they just constructed something, why didn't they have to do any stormwater treatment? So it's a lot of education, which we work with these sites on as well to try to let people know what's going on out there. Stormwater reuse is kind of, I don't want to say up and coming, but it's becoming more of a thing. I think people are realizing the need for it. Excuse me. This is Maplewood Mall, obviously. So there's, you don't go to Maplewood Mall very often, I encourage you to go out there, probably more so in June or July where it looks pretty, but there are about 50 rain gardens around the mall. This is their main entrance by Barnes and Noble is right over here to the right, and then this H&M store, but Barnes and Noble entrance is the big one. So we have a beautiful mural on the back, mosaic mural, and then this cistern that has some interactive, there's some pumps here where kids can, or adults can pump the water, trickles off. So this collects from the roof into this cistern, and then when you pump these, the water drains down on these little chimes here and plays a little music. So kind of fun, so we're seeing more of these larger cisterns go in. We don't do a lot of like gray water, like if places were to use this for flushing toilets or things like that. We haven't gotten involved in that, but I know some of the other watershed districts like Capital Region that covers most of St. Paul, they've been more involved in those large scale projects. But still kind of fun. We're glad to be a part of that. Another touch on some of our signage and artwork. So just trying to make sure that people are aware what's going on. Here's a sign that was installed that says Woodbury Elementary. This photo was taken pre-COVID, just for anyone who's worried about masks. It was pre-COVID. So this was a new rain garden that was installed. We have a number of rain gardens at schools around Rsvl, Central Park. I'm blanking on some of the other ones, but the middle school, Rsvl area middle school, we have a big rain garden out there too. So they all have these signs so that people are aware as they're walking by what's going on. Just gives a little, not a ton of information, but enough that they know what the purpose is. And then we also want to encourage artwork. So public art is something that is important to us as a watershed district. So we have grant funding available to help with that. This is a piece that was installed outside of Maplewood City Hall a few years ago. They put in 2 big rain gardens right outside their front entrance, which are beautiful. And then they worked with the local artist to put in this tall structure here, this collects rooftop rainwater and drains down, so you can watch that water flow down when it rains. So something kind of fun and draws more attention to what's going on out there. I wanted to touch on this one, Lake Owasso shoreline restoration. So over the last few years, we've worked with property owners on Snail Lake in Shoreview, Twin Lake in Little Canada, and now Lake Owasso is our next one, where we work with a number of homeowners to try to do a large scale restoration. So on both Snail and Twin, we outreach to the whole lake. That's a lot smaller than Lake Owasso. So we were able to outreach to all of those, and we work with about 15 to 20 homeowners on both of those lakes. They had some high water issues they were dealing with. I don't know if any of you have heard about that over the last, not this past year, as we were kind of in a drought, but prior to that, we had significantly high waters. And so Snail Lake and Twin Lake had a lot of shoreline erosion, a lot of damage to their shoreline because of those high water levels. So we wanted to start with those shorelines just to get some stabilization in there. And then Lake Owasso is our next target. So all we so far have targeted is basically the Shoreview side. So this, I think that's Horseshoe Drive on the northern side, and then the east side, I think that's Owasso Drive. I get some of the roads mixed up, but those red properties are the ones that are planning to move forward with a restoration project this year. This top side was a little bit harder. The conditions aren't right for a restoration. A lot of them already have some riprap in there, pretty steep slope. So not really conducive for what we're looking to do. And even on this east side, we're going to have to do a lot of grading. They get a lot of ice heave damage in the winter. So their shorelines are fairly steep and pushed up because of that. But we're excited to work with them on that. And then once we get those in, the goal is to have that in fall 2022. And then we'll do outreach to the other areas of the lake and kind of pick away at that just to get some more native plants in the area, which is fun to see. Algae blooms, everyone's favorite thing. I know this past year it was probably the biggest call we got from residents was, what's going on with my pond? It looks disgusting. There's algae in it. What can you do to fix it? And a lot of the algae blooms just are kind of cyclical and also weather related. So we had a hot, dry summer. Waters were kind of stagnant. So a lot of algae grew in there. sometimes what we call algae blooms aren't necessarily algae. They could also be some native plants in there as well. So if you ever have concerns about a pond or water body you live on, let us know, and we can send someone out to take a look. Like I think that's what Jan said Simba did with him, but take a look, let you know what's going on out there. If there's something of concern, we can talk through that. There are some various things, I think I'll talk about my next slide, that homeowners can do that live around ponds. And even if you don't live around a pond, you can do to help, because all of your water eventually gets into a pond or lake. But help with that, there are kind of what we call the Band-Aid methods where, people want to put in aerators or use chemicals. That's nothing we would recommend. We want to help fight the algae kind of at the source. So all of these best management practices that I mentioned help eliminate phosphorus, which is the driving nutrient for algae. So we're trying to reduce phosphorus loads that go into these, and all of these best management practices that I talked about do that. They help absorb or take up that phosphorus so that it's staying out of our water bodies. But yeah, just something to watch for. And unfortunately, if your pond had algae last year, you weren't the only one. It was all over. Kind of a ugly year on that front, but we're hoping if we get a little bit more rain this year, it'll be better. But again, definitely let us know and we can talk through maybe some things that you can do on your own property, as well as if there's neighborhood efforts that we can help organize, we can definitely do that. So here are some just little tips. Some of these hopefully are just refreshers for most people, but there's a lot that individual homeowners can do that don't cost any money. You don't need to do a big rain garden project or anything, but small, this up here is for a certified smart salting. So there's a lot of trainings for property managers, homeowners can go through some of these too, but just some basic internet searches on how to safely use salt in the winter. Obviously, safety is the priority. We don't want anyone to slip and fall. But whatever is written on your bag of salt to put on the sidewalk, you probably don't need that much. They're in the business to sell you salt and use it, but those chlorides are a very, very, very large source of water pollutants, and it's hard. These BMPs that we install don't remove it. Very damaging to our waterways. So just be mindful of that. Use it as necessary. Get out there and shovel and scrape that ice as much as you can before it becomes a problem. We work with a lot of cities and actually are looking for ways that we can help with grants for our cities to help come up with alternatives to salt, or maybe send them to trainings and things like that, and just have better equipment. Picking up after pets, hopefully a no-brainer at this point, but make sure you pick up after your dogs. There is a program called Adopt a Storm Drain or Adopt a Drain. That's big right now. It's actually run through Hamline University, but we help with some of the outreach, but that's just making sure your storm sewers stay clean. Our cities do a great job of street sweeping. Usually, 2 times a year. I know Shoreview can do up to 4 or 5 times a year, maybe a few more as needed, especially in certain areas, but it's not the Public Works Department. They're not out there cleaning every storm drain out. So as much as you can get out to clean off your neighborhood storm sewer, that helps just keep even leaves and whatnot out of our waterways. Washing cars, don't wash your car on the street or driveway. If you don't want it, it's preferred to take it somewhere. That water then gets drained and treated in the sanitary sewer system, but otherwise wash it on your lawn using a safe soap, but then that water can at least soak in somewhere. And rain barrels are another great opportunity, especially if you have plants outside that you can water with your rain barrel, collect some of that roof water and cut back on potable water use. Another great alternative. And here is just some final information on our Stewardship Grant program. I think I'm getting close on time, so I'm almost done here. But so our Stewardship Grant program, this is for people who, if you are a homeowner or business owner and are looking for ways to help with water quality, you can give me a call, shoot me an email. We provide technical and financial support for these types of projects, either these water quality type of projects or habitat restoration, native planting projects. Typically for homeowners, the grant amount is 50 to 75% cost share up to $15,000. We do offer for business owners, it can be 50 to 100% coverage up to $100,000. So a lot more funding for those large scale projects, especially projects that treat roadway runoff. That's the dirtiest that we're trying to treat and clean up. And then Capital Region, Watershed District, and Rice Creek Watershed District have grant programs as well. So again, check our website to see which watershed district you're in, or shoot me an email and I can double check that for you as well. We all three watershed districts work with what was formerly the Ramsey Conservation District, is now part of the Ramsey County Parks and Rec Department, their Soil and Water Division. We work with them for all of our technical assistance. So can put you in touch with the right person if you're interested in learning more. And then quickly, this is kind of everyone's favorite piece that I just want to touch on. We do a lot with carp removal. We've worked with University of Minnesota to do studies. Carp are really hard on our lakes and just do nasty things to our waters. So we've worked with U of M and other private companies to help eliminate it. These are taken on Lake Jarvis in Little Canada several years ago, where we did some big winter netting to get rid of thousands and thousands of carp. It was ridiculous. Now we do a little bit more of the smaller scale where we net them, we can trap them using different methods, but carp are really hard on water quality, as well as not good for other native fish communities. So kind of a little fun piece of what we do as well. And with that, I will open it up to any questions if we have time.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paige. If you want to take your screen share down, we'd love to have some questions. And it looks like David Gilberstadt has one right off the bat.
This was years ago, back before people had cell phones in their pockets with cameras. But I was walking around Lake of the Isles, which is, of course, part of the Minneapolis chain of lakes where kids swim all the time. And about 27th Street, there was a pipe emptying into the lake, and I smell something sort of like gasoline. So I head up 27th Street, and about 2 blocks up, I see a painter dumping all of his excess turpentine into the storm sewer, which went directly into Lake of the Isles. So I have 2 questions. One, do storm drains still go into the lakes? And 2, if you see something that's such blatant abuse like that, is there somewhere to report it?
Yeah, that's awful. Yes, so all of our storm sewers go directly into lakes and water bodies. They're not treated unless they go through some type of treatment system, like I've said, where somebody installs that. There is what we call illicit discharges, which that definitely qualifies for. So the only thing that is supposed to go into the storm sewer is stormwater or rainwater. If you see anyone dumping, even paint or washing chemicals out into their storm sewer, that can be reported. You can call, all the watershed districts have a report a problem line. It's not, I would say, monitored 24/7 like an emergency situation. If you see something big, you can call 911. There is the Minnesota State Duty Officer that handles, so any big spills, you can call them. That's a 24-hour line, and they help organize the cleanup and get the proper authorities out there as needed.
Thank you, Paige. And then Lynn Scott has a question.
Thank you so much, Paige. This was very informative and really appreciate it. Learned a lot today. Just a quick question on the porous pavement. Is that used more like in parking lots, that type of thing, rather than on major roadways? Or could it be used on major roadways, like all of the city streets in Rsvl, for example?
Yeah, good question. So we see it more in parking lots, and typically where there's a little bit less traffic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole area. It is significantly more expensive. So we typically see it like in a drive lane or somewhere where that water flows to. But that being said, we are seeing it more. City of Shoreview, like I mentioned, they've used a lot of that paved drain that is made for large scale roadways. That Owasso Boulevard is probably the most heavily used roadway that I know it's been installed. So it can handle, I guess I don't know what the weight limit is on that road, if semis can drive on that or not. But pretty significant weight loads there. So we're seeing it come about more. Ramsey County uses a lot of the porous asphalt on some of their trails just to help eliminate impervious surface to get more water to drain in. So we're starting to see it a little bit more. And then homeowners too can use it on driveways.
Thank you.
Lauren.
Yes, a while back, there was a biologist that went up in northern Minnesota and looked at a bunch of the lakes from the air. Some of the lakes had severe algae blooms on them and some had none. And so then he started to take a look at the different lakes and said to himself, well, what in the world is going on here? Why so much differential? And as he went a little further, he discovered that if there was sphagnum peat moss growing along the side of the lake, then there were no algae blooms. And so evidently there's some kind of a chemical that's released by the peat moss that prevents the algae from growing there. To that extent, I ended up with things like this, which I throw in my hot tub, which means I don't have to put any chlorine into it, and it keeps all the algae out of it. And a little strip like that lasts for a month or two in my hot tub. And so my question to you is it possible to introduce some sphagnum peat moss along the sides of some of these lakes in order to help keep that algae bloom down?
That is a good question. I honestly don't know that much about it. I'll have to talk with our natural resource specialist and see what he knows. I know we have used some other in-lake treatments like alum treatment. I don't think we have any in Rsvl, but some other treatments like that, which probably offers a similar type of treatment to help remove the phosphorus and help with the algae blooms. And then we're also doing a lot of treatments with spent lime. There's actually a system at Willow Park in Rsvl. So that's using spent lime as a byproduct of our drinking water treatment. So we're, instead of putting that in landfills, we worked with Bar Engineering to do some studies on that and found that that helps remove phosphorus from water bodies. So that doesn't actually get put into the lake. So for instance, at the Willow Park site, it's a separate treatment area where the water from Willow Pond flows through that. It helps remove the phosphorus. So I'm kind of just thinking out loud about your question, but I definitely want to look into that a little bit more and see if that would be effective here.
My suspicion is there's some kind of an allelopathic effect that takes place.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right, and looks like our last question is Mary Jo.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. And oh my gosh, thanks, Paige. I'm Mary Jo McGuire. I happen to be with Ramsey County, and I appreciate all your work with all of these. And in Rsvl, we have 3 watersheds, which service our area. So all 3 of them are here. So what is the best way for people to be a participant in like a rain garden program or a drainage? Do they just call you? Do they go on the website? I mean, because these are all voluntary, efforts that we want more people to be a part of. I mean, we want more people to engage with you in being partners in this, right? And so what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, I think, there's that slide that I showed with kind of individual things people can do. I think taking those on is great. Otherwise, if there is something you want to focus on your property, definitely reach out to me and we can come take a look, help you, talk. We will let you know, even, not everyone's site is good for a rain garden or, whatnot. And we try to be honest about maintenance too. So you're not taking on too much, but I think the best thing would be, look at our website, figure out which watershed district you're in. It does get a little confusing, but each one offers something a little bit different. And then if there are other, we offer some volunteer opportunities. So that's another good way to get involved as well. Or if you're with an organization and you'd like some education or help with communication, if you reach out to me, I can put you in touch with those people to connect with.
Thank
Paige,
you.
may I offer something as well? I saw this at the fair when I've been to the Minnesota State Fair, is that you can go online to like an adopted drain for Ramsey County, and then you can sign up for the drain you want to adopt. Like there's a couple of drains outside my apartment building here that I looked up on there, and you can sign up for that, and then they give you information on that, and you can see if what you're doing is helpful and so on. So I think just look up like adopt a drain if you're interested in that one.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yep. They give you a little sign to put out there too, so everyone knows you're taking care of it.
Wonderful. Well, Paige, this has been really informative, and we are pleased to recognize all of our speakers with a contribution to Rotary Woods and Rain Garden in the Central Park Arboretum. So this is a close project at hand for us as well. And Terry, would you like to introduce our speaker for next week?
Yes, I definitely would. We have Chris Schwartz from the Saints, who is a vice president over there in marketing. And he's going to talk to us about all the exciting stuff coming up with the Saints and what's going on. And, you know, the sun's out today, even though it was -2. Baseball will be here soon, but I thought he'd be a really fun speaker for us to all get ready for baseball season, and a lot of fun coming up. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I wish you all enough. Have a great day.